Canada's ambassador to the UN calls on the Human Rights Council to investigate evidence of genocide against China's Uyghur minority.
Here's a summary of the article.
Canada's ambassador to the United Nations says he's asked the international organization to gather evidence and investigate whether China's persecution of Uyghurs in Xinjiang province constitutes a genocide. Canada's ambassador to the United Nations says he's called on the organization's Human Rights Council to investigate whether China's persecution of Uyghurs in Xinjiang province should be considered an act of genocide. There's no question that there's aspects of what the Chinese are doing that fits into the definition of genocide in the Genocide Convention, Bob Ray told CBC chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton. Last month, a House of Commons subcommittee tabled a report concluding that China's treatment of the mostly Muslim minority, including mass detentions in concentration camps, forced labor and population control measures such as forced sterilization, meets the definition of genocide. Arif Virani, the parliamentary secretary to Canada's Justice Minister and Attorney General, has told the Commons that it is genocide that appears to be taking place today in China. Ray, who previously served as Canada's special envoy to Myanmar, said Canada cannot turn a blind eye to the plight facing China's Uyghur population. A number of activist groups have already urged the agency Human Rights Council to probe potential human rights violations and to implement commitments on genocide prevention.
This post received a score of 37,000, with an upvote ratio of 95%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
I remember when Canada called out Saudi Arabia for their human rights record and the rest of the world forgot who we are.
Then proceeded to sell weapons to them.
They made the deal for that beforehand under a Conservative government and the Liberal Party decided to fulfill it anyway because they didn't want Canada to seem flaky.
That's actually fair.
It was really unfair, actually, and the deal was made so it was literally impossible for us to break it. Major financial penalties would be slapped on Canada. We're talking somewhere near $1 billion just to break the deal. Stephen Harper was responsible for the deal and Trudeau had his hands tied. It was despicable. I think he meant fair as in a fair decision to take to follow up on the contracts negotiated by a previous administration. Basically he meant fair in a Canadian way.
Like when a Canadian bumps into you, and then apologizes to you for it instead of starting a brouhaha.
If a Canadian bumps into a Canadian, there should be 3 apologies from everyone involved, at least.
If a Canadian in a forest bumps into a tree, and no one is around to hear it, does he still say, sorry?
Better late than never.
Maybe. Let's see if any action is taken. It's not like the UN needed Canada to tell them about China. The UN is already well aware of what's going on. Canada bringing the issue up will probably just piss China off, what doesn't, and little more. But one can still hope.
You're going to see Trudeau start to get harder with China now that Biden is coming in power and he can trust the US to have his back. Canadians have a very negative view of China at this point after the Meng incident, and applying pressure on China would be domestically very favorable.
We're pissed off with China for way more than just the Meng thing.
Just the speculation on the housing market is enough to be livid. Then there's the public opinion campaigns from within Canada by China plants. Jesus Christ.
Investment in Canada's housing market is very much not a policy of the Chinese government. They're not speculating on the market, they're using it to hide their cash from said Chinese government.
Doesn't really matter tbh. Chinese nationals are causing severe damage to our housing market and preventing Canadians from having an affordable place to live, while the Chinese government is doing all sorts of underhanded crap and trying to buy and bully us into submission. To be honest, that's more of a problem with your own legislation. If your government was going to take all your wealth and assets, I'm sure you'd find the first place willing to let you hide it. As someone who lives in Sydney, I very much know what it's like. Affordable housing does not exist here. Our government welcomes them with open arms and we can't even afford to buy our own house.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.